Hi, everybody.
Hello.
My Instagram is doing something weird. And my Instagram is not doing something weird. Hello, everybody. So hi on the YouTubes. Hi now on the Instagrams as well. It's Wednesday. That only means one thing. Only one thing important anyway. It's History After Dark. I'm just waiting for my lovely ladies to come through. Kat has requested to follow me because who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? We're all amazing. And I can see Philippa's in. Is she coming? She is coming. Here we go. So hopefully there's one. Hi,
Hello.
Kat.
Hello.
Where's Philippa? Is she coming?
Right.
Is she coming?
There
I nearly said
she
something really
is.
crude then, and I remember we haven't had the disclaimer yet.
No, don't do it yet.
I'm going to try difficulties because my laptop is completely refusing to mute, which is going to be incredibly
I'm
awkward.
not getting anything feedbacky. Do
You're
you remember
not?
when
Me
my
neither.
Mac did that? Oh, I did then.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. It won't change the volume at all. Sorry, everybody. Let me...
My MacBook did that. Do you remember a little while ago? We're having an aside conversation now here, darlings. I swear to God, Apple are up to something, you know. They
Something weird is happening. It
They
literally
are.
says it's muted and it's not. Oh, people, I do not know. Yeah.
Have you got another set of headphones? Whack them in the jack. That should shut it up.
That sounded rude.
Do you know, I don't know if I have. Not with a jack on them.
In the interim, if it's not too bad, Kat, do you want to do the disclaimer?
Why not?
Just in case we all start swearing at technology before you've rolled that out.
It's a valid point. Hello, friends. Welcome to Wednesday. It's just gone 8:15 p.m. GMT, BST,
PMT,
Battlestar Galactica, whatever it might be. PMT, big time. Welcome, friends. We called this History After Dark because it was winter when we made it, as it is now, and it was dark at 8:15. In the summer, it's not dark, but we still like the title because it reflects what we're doing here, which is imparting some historical knowledge while also being in the gutter of filth. So we will look on the darker side of history. We will swear a bit. We will do some foreign expletives. There will be innuendo. There will be smut. So, with that being said, if you happen to be in, I don't know, an open plan office with a judgmental boss, put a headphone in. If you happen to be in a place with a small child who is a dobber, we'll call this child Timmy. Timmy's a problem. If little Timmy is sitting next to you, beady-eyeing you, little creepy face that he's got, just waiting to pounce on some depraved effluence that's going to come out of one of our faces, probably me or Catherine, to be fair. If something unspeakably depraved comes out of our faces and then little Timmy's prone to go into school tomorrow and ask Mrs. Jones what so-and-so means, I don't know, like bukkake or something, and we're going to get a call up the school being like, Mrs. or Mr. blah, 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 why does Timmy know what a bukkake is? Well, you can't give the child away, so put a headphone in. Alternatively, you can watch on the playback. Both on our Insta and on the YouTube, this will be on the playback. I say that, unless, of course, we say something that is so unspeakably reprehensible that this has happened once before, one time before. If we do that, that it is almost borderline a criminal offence, what we've just said, then this will have to be yeasted into the sun and it will no longer exist. It's only happened once, which either means we're getting better or we are due some shenanigans. We will find out today which side of the coin we've come down on. Other things are, if you don't know what we're talking about, don't Google it.
Unless we say it's safe.
Unless we say it's safe to Google it. But just as a general disclaimer, don't Google it. And also, at no point is anything we say a drinking game. If we say it a lot, this is not. Do not do shots to us because your liver will climb out. That, I think, is the disclaimer. And today we are talking about, we're on the deceased Git hunt. We're on the F of the deceased Git hunts. What are we talking about, ladies?
Well, just a couple of quick things. Dorothy says GMT but PTSD after this. And Tara said Timmy, aka Edward Tudor.
Facts.
Wax indeed.
Oh, and thank you, Kath. I brushed it, so I wore it down.
It's that time of the year again already.
Brushed. It's the time to brush the hair. I'm stopping wearing my hair back because I'm getting loads of traction breakage around the front. So I have these weird little tufts that stick up
Baby
like
hairs.
devil's horns, and I don't want people to know what I am. I'm trying to hide it. So I'm trying to hide the Satan.
That's not going well, if I'm being honest.
It's not going well.
Not going well.
You've all met me, so you know. But people who don't know me, I hide it for a little bit at least.
If you say so.
I mean, I can lie to myself.
So today we have the 40 elephants. So F for 40. We did acknowledge that some of these are a little bit of a stretch. So F for 40. Now this is quite different to a lot of the stuff we've talked about before. I was looking at this and I was like, I want to be one of the 40 elephants, but I think they're all dead and I don't think I do too well on my own. So, but we will look back historically at these ladies, what they did and how they did it. So as I say, it is something quite different to what we've done before, but we really hope that you enjoy it because we've enjoyed looking into it as well. But don't forget, all the time when you are listening, you are thinking Git. Is this very Gittish? Is it a bit Gittish? Because in 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to have our Git roundup. So you have to retain this information, consider these things whilst we are talking about them. So this week, to commence battle, is my lovely Philippa.
Thank you. Lovely Philippa. Yeah, because it's a well, I titled the YouTube video Criminal Gits, and I think I titled the Instagram The Gang of Gits. A gang of Gits, yeah. Because it is a gang of Gits. Now, interestingly, we can explain the elephant part of the name better than the 40, actually, because the various times the gang was all different, in number to over 70 at one point. So I'm going to assume, without having looked into it hugely, that perhaps the 40 bit comes from the first time they end up in the press, which is 1873. They first appear in the papers. I'm going to guess that that's probably, it's a tag that the papers love to. I mean, they love criminals. I'm sure. Kat will come on to this later, but the glamorization of criminals. Anyway, the elephant part, easier to explain. They were based in the Elephant and Castle area of London, which explains the elephant. I mean, it's not the nicest way to describe yourself or be described. No. I mean, castle sound odd, I suppose. You can't be the 40 castles. But anyway, there you go. And they were a all-female, began as a shoplifting gang, basically, and they would target high-end stores, and they were active for almost a century. So this is a gang with tenacity, longevity. They were operating from the late 19th century into the mid 20th century, so through the world wars and right up to the 1950s. So, which surprised me. That's I don't know, that's just a very long time to be around. And they were allied with the male gang in Elephant and Castle as well, which were they get called a mob and they're men when you read that up. Run by or led by the McDonald brothers at some point anyway. So yeah, they were notorious shoplifters, but they were clever. They would dress as well-to-do ladies and took advantage of the fact that female customers would be given quite a lot of privacy, and they would adapt their clothes so that they had pockets inside their skirts they could shove stuff in. And they start, I mean, it's fairly unglamorous, really, actually. It's just it's basic shoplifting, getting it out and getting it into some supply network. And they had like people who would effectively what do you call it when you do it with cash now? When you do it, launder
money laundering.
Yeah. So launder the goods basically,
apparently,
and sell them on. Like, for instance, some of the clothes they would sell to other clothes companies that would just take off whatever the sort of identifying features of the clothes would be. So there was some complicitness in some of the other shops around as well. But they were incredibly successful, and they would support, many of them supported their families from their earnings, you say, their spoils. Many of them had husbands who were in prison, or, for want of a better term, out of work. Why? I imagine there's a whole heap of reasons. So but they became more notorious, and then that became more difficult to keep the secrecy. Obviously, they had to walk into shops, so they had to be unidentifiable, but that became more and more difficult. So although they operated in London, or they're known as a London gang, they began to use the train network and get out of the city to more rural locations, seaside locations. Would go with a suitcase as if they're on a on a trip, and then fill it up and bring it back. So fairly low level at this, but that sort of thing. But they're also known for a bit of blackmail. So one of their and looting. So one of their tactics became getting a job in a well-to-do house as a servant, getting into a relationship with the master, and then blackmailing him. So that was one, and then or looting the house. So they expanded their repertoire. They by the 1920s, with the sort of in the 1920s, they're known as the Roaring Twenties. If you had money, you could have a good time, and these women were earning a lot of money. So they were becoming notorious, and they would use the clubs and bars and restaurants that are that were around about. 1920s to me seems like a bit of a glamorous time, or glamorizing time, for this kind of crime as well. I don't know, but you see it, don't you, in movies and stuff. But it does appear that it's it was good for them. And they would they even bought cars, bought cars in order to get rid of their goods, but also outrun the police, which I thought was quite funny, because if they're all around the Elephant Castle area, then they're going to go back there with the car anyway. Didn't see quite how that worked. They're not known particularly for being violent, I think. However, they would resort to violence if they needed to. And by needed to, they were very territorial, as all gangs are, and they would expect a percentage of any other sort of gangs shoplifting takings to them. A sort of a due, a tax was paid to them, and if that wasn't paid, they would resort to violence. And there was examples of kidnappings as well. So they so they were I don't know. Catherine, you like the idea of them. They're sort of petty criminals who just made a career out of stealing from people. And
you make it sound so unglamorous, Philippa.
But
what
I think is cool though is they must have been able to pass. They must because they're all dressed up, but they're going to have to speak to people. And Elephant and Castle, I don't think it's ever been a particularly salubrious location. And I think that unless you did some work on your elocution, if you went up west to Selfridges, if you spoke like that, then you'd be spotted a mile off. So they've got to somehow learn to pass, to kind of fit in with the to be taken seriously, to get that kind of stuff happening. I think that's pretty. I mean, I'm not glamorizing the theft, but to think about how they were able to move between those worlds, they must have been quite chameleon-like. Maybe. What do you reckon?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Actually, that's something that because, like as Philippa was saying, and I had that in my notes as well. The way they would dress and present themselves, as you said, it allowed them to go into high-end stores, and then these are obviously very high society women, so they can be trusted. They're not like the poor people who are going to come in and fleece us. which obviously was a mistake on their part. But yeah, that's a good. You can dress the part, can't you, if you've got the money? But you can't change your posture and what you sound like and how you present yourself. Because if they're from Lambeth and all around there, it's like not going to be like that, is it? So there's a great thread. Just if you're on Instagram, you're missing out. A great thread on the comment section on YouTube about hair care.
We're asking us to do an episode on hair care. I think that's the thing, is that there's also it's about kind of, we talk about things like cultural capital today, and being able to move through various groups of society and talk in ways and have kind of recognition of things that, because it's about more than putting on the right dress. It's about more than rounding out your vowels in certain ways, isn't it? It's about more than that. It's about being able to enter a space with the confidence, bearing and posture of somebody that comes from either new or old money when you don't. And there are, and particularly like if you're in London, if you're a Londoner, you can hear the slight tonal difference as to, I mean, I'm not going to say it's postcode by postcode, but certainly borough by borough, you can sort of spot those accent shifts. You can spot the things that the slight kind of language differences. So to fit in is a study in performance that is both physical and vocal.
Well, did anybody else think maybe it's because I'm a Londoner went in their head when you said that? Sorry, because that's where my brain went. Philip, first time I entered without a cheeky chat going on. Sorry. Give it time.
Don't worry.
What were you going to say, P?
Early doors.
I was just thinking about this, their idea that they would go into houses and get jobs as servants, obviously with false references. I wonder whether, I don't know the timeline, but I wonder when that started and how much that was also a little bit of some gathering.
Subject of relation.
Yeah, because I think that was quite early on, wasn't it?
Which would make sense, because they need to learn this. And they need to be able to put it off straight away. You can't go. There isn't that many shops that you're going to be able. I mean, they're first being written about in the newspapers in 1873, but it's likely that they were, doing this for longer beforehand, and so they're going undetected. Maybe not by police, because they're still nicking stuff, but generally undetected. So maybe they're learning their trade by going in.
Because it's not like there's going to be films or TV that they could mimic. They need to do a subject observation, and they need to be able to mimic the ladies, not the gents. So they probably, the best thing you could do if you want to do this grift is get yourself a role as a lady's companion and see how she moves in through all the seasons. Even things like knowing what change of clothes you have to wear for a certain thing. Just
what time of day, whether you keep your hat on or your gloves on or whatever.
How you address a bellhop versus the person behind the counter in the jewellery store. You need to, and the only way you're going to learn that at that time is following someone, I think.
No, definitely.
Interesting.
That hadn't occurred to me till then.
No, interesting.
That is interesting.
Maybe it's not just about robbing and blackmail. Maybe it's also a learning curve. Very interesting.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, otherwise, how do they know? Caroline asks, what traits might one need to join the travels of 3 had broads in the Winnebago?
Well, they will be inside the Winnebago. I apparently will be outside the Winnebago.
Yes. Strapped up by your ankles.
Yeah.
Like a windsock.
Average night out. I just think, just be sort of slightly insane. Wonder what might happen. Go with it. Don't blame us for anything if you came on your own. If you come on your own, it's nothing to do with us what happens afterwards. You've got to grown up making bad choices.
And we are co-signing those bad choices. But also, just don't take yourself too fucking seriously. It ain't the end of the world. Laugh at yourself.
And us, and if
you can't, come in our private bitch group for when we can't, for when someone is so out of order that we can't laugh until we've had a good old
rant.
bitch. Yeah.
Yeah. When the
That
sense of humour fails,
Yeah.
it's getting the group, and I'm like, look at this fucking
Group
bullshit.
therapy. Yeah.
Look at this shit I'm dealing with, and it's not daily, but sometimes it does come in runs where all of us just
the
get
moon.
the
full
moon comes out,
moon.
and Jesus,
The comments that we
Go
share, we
wild.
get on our videos, and we're just like, oh, what is going on? But it's a very
Yeah.
cathartic experience, and then we can go back to.
Yeah. So if you're ever in one of our video comments and you see someone's posted something shitty, 8 times
Feel
out of
free.
10 we will.
Yeah, feel
Also,
free to
feel
plow
laugh
in.
8 times out of 10 we will have spotted it, and if we haven't replied yet, it's because we're talking about it in group chat.
I think we mentioned this before ages ago. Whereas if you go on someone's post, and this is going to apply to other genres, not just history, and you start going, oh, you spelt something wrong, or I think it was this date, or why have you put it like that? You don't look clever, you're a dick. And anyone who else reads it is going to go, you're a dick. That's what's going to happen. And then we'll all talk about it, and other historians will notice it, and they'll all talk about it. And everyone in the world of history, it's not a big community, everyone will know you're a dick within about 48 hours. So knock yourselves out.
Because the thing is, everyone makes mistakes, and the thing is that it's not about we don't want to be told we've had a mistake, but don't come in snide about it. There's no need to be snide.
That's the thing. If it's like,
It's
oh, I
the
just
way
noticed,
it's
is this date right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that is it, 100%.
FYI, so someone going, oh, FYI, I love your content, but just so you know, this thing is pronounced and then spell it out phonetically. Like,
We like that.
when people say, because I want to learn, I obviously want to learn, but it's when people are like, I'm surprised that somebody who's doing what you're doing doesn't know how to pronounce blah blah. Well, that's because I learned it by reading.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and just you're still a knob.
Yeah. Stand down, soldier. Stand down.
Dorothy says, speaking from experience, when you feel so comfortable with 3 historian ladies that you don't hesitate to joke about them and OnlyFans, you know you're in.
Correct. Salute that. I salute that message.
Of, people saying yes, the full moon is definitely a real thing. Debbie, who's a retired ERNS, and sorry, someone else up in the Instagram comments who works in customer services. Oh, if you're going to take your holiday,
it affects my youngest. The moon. The moon.
It affects me.
Are you sure?
President Manny Ortega, as soon as I joined, I heard you're a dick. Wasn't
Welcome.
to you. I mean, unless you misbehave, in which case you might get it addressed to you. Welcome.
If you go commenting on our YouTube and say something, then you might.
Just don't be shitty. Just remember that we're people. Remember that we're people who are capable. We're busy people.
We do a lot of content as well. If we didn't make any mistakes, it would be amazing. I can't remember what someone wrote on something the other day of mine.
We're all editing our own stuff. That's the other thing. Is
you get some corkers. You do.
We're all scripting, filming, and editing our own stuff. So if you've made the mistake, chances are your brain will have corrected it when you first made it. Then it's corrected it while you filmed it, and then it's corrected it when you've uploaded it. So because we don't have a team of people working for any of us, if a mistake happens, particularly like I invert numbers in dates, all the goddamn time, that's going to happen more than once. And I apologise, and I will always correct it when I'm glad when people point it out. But just don't be an arsehole about it. There's no need.
I think you'll find you mean
yes.
Or actually, I think you'll find the second comment starts with that. I want to immediately just insert a pen through my eye socket into my frontal lobe and just go whisk it. Sorry, we just started ranting there.
Thanks for coming to our TED Talk.
Yeah,
thanks for the group therapy session, friend.
Yeah. So
shall we?
I suppose we
continue on.
Let's probably carry on with what we can do.
Let's talk about girl gangs. Let's talk about girl gangs. From one girl gang to another.
Love it. We need it. Yes. Okay.
Well, we're instead of being physically violent, we're back
to cat
emotionally violent.
People are on our patch, and we are demanding respect
verbally.
Yeah. Well, we all. While we're on our patch, Philippa, someone's tried to move into your patch. That's not a euphemism.
Yes.
No, it's not on.
I think our motto should be fuck around and find out. Fuck around and find out. Hashtag girl
Words
gang.
to live by.
Yeah.
I like it.
I double dog dare you to fuck around and find out.
Dare you.
Living an eclectic life. I need to share the last 5 minutes with a few people. Go ahead.
Yeah.
As
Clip
long as you
it,
like and
share it.
subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Clip it, share it, go with God. Or whichever
Julianne.
deities you believe in.
Oh dear.
Debbie, stupid should hurt.
If not physically, then just in the fifis. I mean,
Julianne thinks we said girl band.
I
The
mean,
90s,
we could do
not
that.
the
Auto-tune's a thing. We'll start on a key change.
Auto-tune's a thing. Oh dear. Right. As we were. Okay.
Oh, a mad journalist says it annoys me a lot that there's also people who feel that if you love a subject and are interested in it, you should automatically know everything about it. Sorry, but no, don't be a bellend. Facts and truth. Like I'm not fucking Google. I will never be Google.
Or can you do? I know what I got the other day. Do you remember I sent someone just saying, "Can you tell me stories about like someone?" It was someone really specific. Can you do?
Oh yeah.
No,
Not famous
you know
either.
what? Go and do your own family research.
Yeah.
But we would like to emphasize the fact that from what we've observed over our whole time, all of us working in this field, is that you probably shouldn't do your own genealogy.
No. And also I firmly believe there is somebody working in genealogy professionally. I can't prove it, and I'm not going to name names because I don't know anybody who works in genealogy, but I firmly am of the belief there is somebody, or maybe a group of somebodies, who is working in genealogy who is just telling people straight up bullshit, like straight lies about who they are directly descended from, who's their 13 times great grandmother.
Always 13.
Usually
Someone's worked out it has to be 13.
Yeah. 13.
Yes.
To get back to the 1500s, someone's worked that out.
So
Genius.
it's always a 13 times great grandparent.
Yep.
And they.
At which point, by the way, you are related to pretty much every fucking person who is alive.
There's well over 1,000 people at that level of relatedness. It's really not that. It'd be more special if you were related to nobody famous. I genuinely believe, particularly like so many of them are reckless breeders.
You are nobody. Nobody.
Like,
that's what you are.
It would be more surprising if at that level you could be like, my grandmother, my 13 times great grandmother was a scullery maid. If you could tell me that, I would be fucking astounded.
Because they never.
But yeah, there's somebody in the industry who is just telling people straight up bullshit for money. Straight up bullshit for money.
We should do it as a sideline.
Yeah, because we get hundreds of these stories. We'll just rack them all up.
Yeah,
just post one out.
Put it out of the jar, being like, "Who is your 13 times great grandmother?" I'm not going to research it. I'm just going to go, and the winner is Anne Boleyn. How? Anne Boleyn.
Not again.
Don't ask. Don't ask how. Never ask how.
Anne Boleyn, and you're also in a puff's life.
You and these 26,000 other people.
Yeah,
we're all direct descendants of Anne Boleyn. Don't mind the fact that she didn't have any direct descendants past Elizabeth. Direct descendant of Anne Boleyn. Don't mind the fact that's bullshit. Small detail. Right, sorry. Let's just
anyway, we went.
Julianne Shockley, I dubbed the Spicy Girls. I see what you did there.
Oh, yes.
Caroline, I see your 13th grandmother and raise you a 14th. There we go.
Excellent.
Today's cans of worms include genealogy and being a dick in the comment section.
I don't know how we got onto any of that, but anyway.
How do we ever get onto anything?
I'm quite enjoying it.
The other one was sex with Morris dancers and teabagging.
Well, I don't think they came up in the same conversation, did they?
I don't think they did, actually, to be fair.
If you're going to do a dance that's supposedly a fertility dance,
and you jingle like Santa, what do you expect? What do you expect? Santa Claus is coming to town. Santa Claus is coming to town. Don't let the elves watch. That's disgusting.
Hey, I've heard elves are dirty.
Phil.
Oh, so they're streaming it to OnlyFans. They're
just fucking OnlyFans.
Oh, we're so off track.
So
We still
Deborah
need-
and Casey, you still didn't explain teabagging. We
Don't
have.
Google it.
Don't
We have
Google it.
explained it. When
We
I say we, I mean Cat, clearly.
Okay, all I'm going to say is,
Hmm.
one half of the human population, almost around about half of the human population, has something upon them that is a bag that can
It depends.
go into the cup of the face.
If you never make
and thus be a tea
if
bag.
you never make a 1 cup tea, you might not know what this relate. Yeah.
Say it as it is. It either means putting your testicles on somebody's eyeball or in their mouth.
Oh, the
That's
eyeballs.
teabagging.
What on earth?
Apparently, for some people, teabagging is dunking it on the eyeballs. Although
Well,
I thought
That's
that was
you. I've
that
not
was
come across that before.
I thought that was a gonzo teabag on the eyes, penis down the nose.
Gonzo.
But
Oh dear.
That's a new one on me.
but yeah, teabagging is putting your balls in someone's mouth and dunking them in and out. Still no why. I mean, testicles in the mouth.
I don't know how much.
I've
I
minded
don't know
it.
how
now.
much more explanation we can
I've
give
minded
that.
it. That's it. What else can I tell you? I don't know what to
Possibly
say. That's it's. There we go.
Yes,
Let's see
it's not
what Intrepid
complicated.
Frady Cat has written.
Looks like elbows.
Ah.
Eyeballs. I didn't know that. That's the I heard it recently. I don't know if it's true. Anyway,
Yeah,
are
we're
you
officially
understand? Good.
unhinged.
Thank you,
Page
Deborah.
is correct. We are
Oh.
off the rails.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
it's happening,
Deborah
it's
is
happening.
there now. She's
We're
there.
there.
Oh,
We're
not
there.
literally.
Good. Okay.
But
Right.
anyway,
Let us
let's
let us
back to
commence.
what we were meant to be talking about 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to you about Alice Elizabeth Black. Oh no, what have I missed?
Sorry, living in a collective life. Trust them when they say don't Google. I made that mistake once.
I
now
have
you're
to
on a
know
watch
And
list.
now
though.
I'm unemployed.
What was it that they Googled? That's what I want to know.
Well, she can't. Well, she might be able to.
I'm drinking tea. I'm drinking a very special tea. It's called a throat tea, which sounds filthy now I've said it out loud. But it's for
if I'm being honest.
it's a vocal zone tea, darling. I did excessive speaking last week all over the shop, so I'm doing some vocal rest.
Tara, thank God the option online is to buy me a coffee and not a tea bag. Can I just say, I just like to put out a reminder at this point that I don't drink tea.
Weirdo.
And I don't swallow either.
Deep throat tea, yes, Intrepid Frady Cat. Deep throat tea. Made with a tea bag. Indeed, it was made with a tea bag. My husband.
Oh no, Alberta, yes, please don't Google. I Googled something Kat said about 2 girls. And I'm not reading that word. God, I wish I hadn't.
2 girls, 1 cup. I apologise. We say don't Google
We
it for a
said
reason.
so many times, do not Google that. Oh my God.
I
Right.
didn't. I still am.
Okay, come on. Let's get this
Lies.
Right,
Let's get this
the road.
absolute shit show back on the rails.
Catherine.
Right, yeah.
Right, it's you.
So,
It's you, love.
Diamond Annie. So we're talking about Alice Elizabeth Black, born in June 1896.
You should tell everyone who she is, though.
Oh,
First.
I'm there. I'm there.
Oh, okay.
So she's this lady. Now you may have heard of her as Diamond Alley or Alice Diamond, because there was a number of reasons, but basically one of them was she was not a lady to be messed with. She was involved in all these jewelry heists, obviously, as part of the Diamond Elephants, but apparently she used to wear an awful lot of diamond rings, apparently, and they were her equivalent of like a lady's knuckle duster. Does that sound fair?
She's going to hit you with her ring hand.
Yes, and she was 5'9" as well, so that was quite a formidable height for a woman in that period. That was taller than the average London male, so she must have been quite a sight to behold.
Maiden.
Yeah, so she came from sort of a family around this area, sort of near the Elephant and Castle, Lambeth, all around that way. So as we were discussing earlier, it would have been a bit rough and ready. She was probably never going to make it in life trying to live a legitimate life in that capacity. Her sister Louisa, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, she also joined in with the 40 Thieves, and her brother Tony was part of the male equivalent of the gang. So was it the Elephant and Castle? Was it the Elephant?
Yeah, there's some Castle gang.
Yeah, so he joined them, and they'll probably come up in conversation later. Her dad, this is amazing. Her dad was a criminal of various capacities, and he got arrested and put into prison through punching the son of the Lord Mayor through a window, which I'm both intrigued, shocked, and admiring of.
Through the glass pane?
Yeah, through the glass pane.
Yeah.
So, which of course you'd get into more trouble for that because it's the Lord Mayor's son, and you would have done if it was one of his contemporaries. They probably would have just left them to get on with it between them, wouldn't they? But
Fair.
there we go. Yeah. So yes, so when she took over, she was 20 when she became sort of the leader, if you like, of the elephants, leader of the elephants. And she gave it a little bit of an overhaul. So Philippa talked about how, it was quite a lot of petty shoplifting. We talked about
an overhaul. She come in and like reorganize.
She did. She came in and went, right, let's look at what's working and what is. That would be you. They didn't have spreadsheets back then, so you'd have had to have found.
Oh, I would have done one on a blackboard.
Well, the first one I've done is I've invented something called Excel.
Gather round my tablet.
Yeah, literally.
It's chalk and pen, but it's an Excel spreadsheet.
It's the biggest chalkboard you've ever seen. And so yes, she kind of came in, and so Philippa talked about coming into houses, looting the houses, getting the jobs like that, petty theft, getting things you're getting arrested for. So one of the things she did is immense time leverage, is that she had women working in different parts of the city. So there was lots of different things going on at the same time. But it very much goes back to this high society thing again, because a lot of the time the clothes and things they wore, as Philippa said, they would take to like fences, pawnbrokers and things like that. So there was not so much in the way of being able to identify in what they physically look like. You know, if they stole, for example, some very expensive furs from high-end shops, well, people are going to look out for those. So you sell them. So they would use the money from the things that they bought and stolen and everything to dress themselves in these high society clothes. There was a great example of something that she did where they actually caught her in a store, and she managed to get the contents of what she was stolen into the detective's pockets. And there's another one where, and this was one where they very much used the high society angle, is that several of the ladies got very dressed up and they turned up in hansom cabs outside. It might have even been Selfridges. And they went in these small groups. And then she turned up beautifully with all her furs and things like that in a limousine. The driver got out and he opened the door. So as Philippa said, this lulls all these people into this false sense of security, that you have these beautiful high society ladies who are very genteel. They're going to come in. They have money to make legitimate purposes. And so they've come into this shop and they fleeced that place in like an hour. And nobody realizes until they've gone. And this is sort of the beauty of it, really. Also, as Philippa touched upon, she began to realize that they were going to get noticed. So she had a number of tactics for this. So one was, as Philippa said, finding ways to come out of London. And one of the things they used was the cars, because, again, that allowed them to outrun the police, but it made it easier to go further afield. So once you start to get recognized, you take your net wider. And then she had some tactics. I like these. I might work them into my life, actually. So she had 3: the crush, the ringer, and the decoy. So I think the decoy is the one I like the best, but it shows gross human stupidity in one of its highest forms. So this is kind of based on that, keeping people looking at one thing. So she would go in with everybody knowing who she was, doing her full business. So they'd all be so busy watching her that they wouldn't be paying attention to what else was going on. So everybody else would come in and fleece the place because they would. Now, to me, that is so ridiculous. That to me, it's so obvious that that's what's going to happen. But maybe this is just the benefit of hindsight. I don't know. Look at me. Keep looking at me. Keep looking at me.
But then distraction robbery is still happening. Like you're told when you're out on the street, if someone comes up to you and starts touching your arm or your shoulder, look around. They're distracting you. So distraction robbery is still very much a thing.
It is. I just think with her, they were so. What they did was so well known. Who she was so well known. My immediate thought would have been suspicion. Maybe that's just me.
Do we know if they ever disguise themselves other than dressing up?
Not necessarily to my knowledge. It's like a beard.
If they
Like
hadn't been
Groucho Marx.
photographed,
Yeah, but how many stores could they? I suppose once they stretch
Well, that's
their
a good
patch
question.
open. Oh, hang on.
I've never heard it called that before.
I'm so sorry. That was. Oh God. Okay.
Well, yes.
Oh God.
It's
That
best
would distract people a lot, I'd
I
imagine.
don't know. I need
That would be a way to really confuse them.
Everyone, look at me. Look at me. What's on?
Look what I can do. Look, Mum, no hands.
Sorry, everybody.
Right.
That was awful.
It's even better when it's Philippa though, because it adds an extra layer of
I
naughty.
just-
I'm always
See,
surprised.
and Cat are
I'm
just
always
like
surprised.
dirty. But Philippa's
Yeah.
like,
I'm always shocked when it's Philippa, in a good way.
But it was. I'm quite glad I didn't finish the sentence, but you knew where I was going with that. Once they started to go elsewhere, then you can kind of imagine, understand that they're going to be I don't know, the whole tactics. It's not
you
just
flustered yourself now,
recognizing.
haven't you?
Yeah, I have. It's not even just recognizing them; it's the tactics of them would be recognized in the shops as well, maybe. So, but I don't know how many shops there would have been high end.
I mean, the thing is, even if you recognise Alice Diamond, and you know she's a thief, you don't know who she's brought in with her, and
No.
if everyone's got their eyes on her, trying to figure out who she's with, and she's just paying no attention, she is the distraction.
And she's coming in and spending actual money.
No, I don't know. Is the honest answer.
You can't arrest her if she's not stealing.
No, exactly. And she
You
doesn't
can't
need
arrest
to
her
do
for thinking
anything.
she's stolen in the past.
She's just got herself all tarted up, and she's just strutting her shit around the place. That's what's
Yeah.
happening. So
And she's got a whole. If you're a shopkeeper and someone comes in and you're like, that is Alice Diamond, she is a prolific thief. That's who you're watching, because you're trying to figure out who she's handing stuff off to, who she's organising, who she's commanding. I mean, if Alice is smart, she's going to start looking at ladies who she has no contact with as if she's giving them the nod. She's going to try and implicate people who aren't involved. So maybe that's how it worked.
yeah, she may very well have done that. So yes, so the crush was another one. So we had the decoy, the crush, where a lot of women would all swarm around the jewelry counter, and one of them would ask to look at something, which they would get at, and they would pass it round and down and round and down until the jewelry assistant kind of lost track of where it is. But then that would go to somebody completely different, and then they would leg it and all the other women would still be there. So it's not like someone had taken something. And you could even say, well, no, it's not one of us. We haven't got it. Look, you can have a look, sort of thing. And then the other one was a ringer, this was a lot more work, because they would try on something really, really expensive, get the feel of it, if you like. They go, no, I'll leave it now, go back, make one that's paste, and then come back and swap it round somehow, which amused me. I wonder, because obviously some of the time frame we're looking at, if people thought they were buying something really expensive and it was paste, are there still things being passed around and down now that people really think are real and aren't?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Well, I mean, possibly not now, because if you've got something of that value, it's insured, and to have it insured, you have to have it appraised, and unless an appraiser's in on it, no appraiser is going to pass paste for diamonds.
I know you've ruined that for me now.
Sorry. But unless you have it insured, unless you're the kind of rich where you don't insure shit.
Yeah.
Or unless you know it's the kind of stolen where you don't insure shit.
Well, I found out I got left a piece of jewelry once, and and this was many years ago. This was over 20 years ago. And back then they wanted 120 quid to have it just valued for insurance.
Yeah, they do.
So there is a possibility that if someone's been left it, maybe that they've just thought, I'm not banging out the money to have it valued, and then I'm not banging out the extra money on my insurance man. I'm just going to hope that it's all right. So wing it, mate. Wing it. Because to be fair, if you're your average person walking down the street, no one's going to think that what you're wearing is 250 grand's worth, are they? They're going to think you bought that down Primark for 50, because no one's going. It's like buying a Rolex. if you're a normal person, no one's
Yeah.
going to believe it's real. Buying a Rolex is pointless. It's not worth doing these days. I'm really sorry if anyone's got a Rolex. I'm just being honest.
Well, maybe they're
Actually,
real.
on the point of Rolex, just as a heads up to the ladies in the crowd, if at any point if you are married to a man and he is purchasing watches, Rolex, Patek Philippe, etc., have a little eye, because traditionally, and especially in the UK, so if you're not in the UK, maybe disregard, traditionally, watches are seen as being the man's property. So theoretically, a man can bury a whole chunk of change into watches, thus not having to split money in a divorce.
No. Is that
Yes.
still a thing?
I believe it is still a thing.
Oh, go after his pensions then.
It could be challenged in court, but if your spouse is suddenly buying a shit ton of very expensive watches, ding-a-ling-a-ling, get your ducks in order, ladies.
That's
How
interesting.
a range of break-in. Not that I would even know how to do that, and I've never heard of it.
This is getting borderline yeeting if we start talking about that.
For the sake of the law, we do not, under any circumstances, condone or suggest that you fake a break-in / do an insurance job / have your potentially cheeky cash hiding husband's knees broken. We don't suggest you have your husband kneecapped. That's not what we're suggesting.
Definitely not.
We do not approve this method.
I'm just going to go home, check. Go home.
You are home, love.
Get home.
Check how many watches David's got, because now I'm a little bit suspicious.
Have a look.
To be fair, we're not married, so.
Doug pointed out he can only wear one at a time, just know where the other ones are. Fact. Good. Yeah. Yes. And
that's probably a better course of action, isn't it?
He's only got one arm.
Oh dear. Oh, Bobby, it's a bit late, but we had a ring that my great-grandmother, was she your 13 times great-grandmother? Passed away, and it was not what the family thought it was. Tell us more. Anyway, so that was the crush. Yeah, and then the ring.
And it says, what about if there's suddenly more clocks on the wall? Funnily enough, clocks are not considered to be the women's possessions. Clocks are marital property. I don't know if there's an equivalent for the ladies. I just know that in terms of marital property, men's watches are considered to be the preserve of the husband and not to be split.
Why?
Don't know.
The contents of your handbag. Maybe.
Well, if the contents of your handbag contains gold bullion, best believe it's going to be split. Depends on what the fuck's in there. If it's like lint and 3 polos, probably they'll leave you to it.
Tampax and a sticky humbug. Debbie, the engagement and wedding ring for the woman.
Oh,
yeah, that would make sense, wouldn't it?
Not quite the same as like 16 Patek Philippe's, though, is it? Really?
Doug says the house. Oh dear. Right. Anyway. Yes, right. So that was kind of like the moment. So she came into sort of putting more structure into things, new techniques. She made sure things like, the dresses had more sort of pockets and slits. And sometimes, sorry.
Just okay. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath.
One woman once had a false arm, so she could secrete stuff with her real arm, and nobody.
Wait, hang on. Does that mean she was an amputee, or she had an extra?
She had an extra arm, so she had
a
arm, and she had her other arm underneath, so she could pilfer the goods, and things would obviously get stored under, in these little pockets. Sometimes very voluminous skirts and things like that for larger items like furs and things like that.
I like the idea of a large skirt.
Well, also, the traditional thing of pockets, underskirts, they are like old-fashioned pockets, or they're not attached to the dress. You have, like, as Catherine said, a slit in the skirt and the petticoat, and you can tie pockets around your waist. And they're made of they're essentially made of like really dense kind of calico, and they can be down to your bloody ankles if you want. If you can walk with it, it could be the length of the skirt.
But it will jangle.
It's full of diamonds.
Yeah.
What's that?
It would be a bit difficult to get to those polos, though.
It would. You would have to
Have a good
old
delve.
lead, a good old delve around.
Mm. Yeah.
Sorry,
What
my
else we
brain's
got?
just gone off
What
on
else we
something.
got?
So basically, yeah, but the main thing was really, and this in one way held the structure to very together and worked well, but in other ways backfired on her. So they were called, where have I written it down? Hoisters. So she brought in the Hoisters Code, which produced a lot more structure. So Philippa talked about how, you know, the women in the earlier days were able to support layabout husbands, people, you know, when their husbands were in prison, all sorts of stuff. And they sort of had that capacity and they did that. But she made it much more strict. And I can see this because you don't want so many people coming and going in and out of this situation, especially where she's put things in place that, you know, are a lot more about the secrets and the codes and the ways that they are doing things. If you have too many people going in and out of this circle, then that's going to create an issue, isn't it? So things included no drinking before a raid, which sounds fair enough. Going to bed early. Oh, my phone's doing a thing. I got paused there. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry, it paused there because my battery's getting a bit low. You had to obviously give complete and total loyalty. If you didn't, you were punished by like beatings and being very publicly ridiculed amongst your peers. If you had members with family members in prison and stuff like that, you had to promise to financially support them. If someone was arrested, you had to give them alibis, even if that put your neck on the line. That you had to respect each other. You could not steal or take or borrow from each other without permission. And the one that got as well, now this is kind of what led to her fall really as the leader of the 40 Thieves, was she had a kind of no boyfriends thing in place. Now this is where I'm like, on the one hand, I kind of get that from what we were just saying about not bringing more and more people into this equation. However, there had been women before who'd obviously had boyfriends, husbands, and whatever. I don't know how much problem that had caused. But this is not realistic, is it? When you've got all these successful, often beautiful women who live in these wonderful lifestyles, who have a relative amount of freedom and can be their own women, people meet and people fall in love. And this is what was her undoing. So there was a lady called Marie Britton, and she fell in love with this chap, and she was told, you cannot be with him. You just have to bin him off. That's it. It's not acceptable. But she didn't want to, and she got pregnant, so she had to get married. Okay, so she was absolutely furious about this with this woman, and they were having a bit of a gathering, her and some of her ladies, probably like in a flappers club or something like that, in the Canterbury Club, if that was a flappers club, and everyone was quite drunk, and she rallied everybody, all the other girls that were working there, and said, right, she's done this. She's let the Hoisters Code down. She's putting us at risk. And they all went basically down armed with like rocks and concretes and glass bottles and things. And they went to the house of this lady and her new husband and attacked him quite brutally in front of her. And she's pregnant, obviously, at this time. Now, she got arrested for this. And she got put in prison for about 3 years. And when she came out, she had been replaced by a lady whose name I can't remember. Yeah, will come to me. She carried on his, but she never tried to get her position back. The lady that came and took over, she basically binned off a lot of the practices that they had been using, and she kind of went for like smash and grab raids. She would just drive your car into the window, smash it all up, nick everything, fuck off. And to be fair,
that's the direct approach.
It wasn't quite as genteel, but it worked.
You don't need your furs.
No, it was quick. It was like making the most of your time. So that's kind of what she did. So I think, oh no, she got 18 months, sorry, not 3 years. Oh, and the lady replaced her was Lillian Rose Kendall, the bobbed hair bandit. And then she came out and she ran after this. She ran a brothel and she gave advice to other women who were thieves. So it's a bit of a way to be taken down. But I think in some ways, you think after everything she did, that was the thing that finished her. It wasn't a backfiring if they kidnapped somebody who encroached on their turf and that someone's family members had come to like cut her up or something, or you know, that she got arrested and charged and they got banged up for ages, or something else went wrong. It was the fact that she'd come along and she'd got so angry about this woman's personal life. I said, I get that she had this code and these rules and needed to be structured, but you know what, when somebody loves somebody, okay, that's a very hard thing to interfere with. I think, you know, there's lines that get crossed, and love is love. And I think if someone turned around to me and to a lot of us who said, you can't have anything to do with that person you love, then you'd be a bit like, I don't know, ladies, you've been in love. What do you think? In the comments, tell us. Maybe I'm just feeling sentimental.
I mean, being very romantic.
I think the problem is that the men involved before, like in the old days, they were tied to the 40 elephants were tied with the Elephant and Castle gang. There were probably going to be issues around that about supremacy and about volition of women, but also having a layabout pisshead husband at home who's not doing anything apart from, you know, knocking you up, so you're banging out kids that he's then not taking care of. What that does is it's distracting, but also it means that there's a leaky vessel for your stories.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's why I kind of get, she was like, no boyfriends, no this, no that.
They're the weak link. They're the weak link.
And maybe she did, I say, anticipate it. She must have, I just think she must have anticipated that was going to happen. And maybe the threats of, we're going to call you out and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, maybe she thought that would be enough. But I just think to just tell all these beautiful, successful, independent young women that you can't, it was just bound to backfire at some stage. It was bound to. So, but and in the end, that was the thing that finished her. It wasn't all the things that you'd have thought would have happened, you know, prison or violent. As Philippa said, they weren't violent like a lot of the other male gangs and stuff. Well, they could be,
but they were willing to be.
They were willing to be. It was there.
I think you'd have to be if you're going to be territorial. You have to
be prepared to.
Yeah, you do have to be. Yeah. I'm interested though, at around about this time, whether that there is this rule about not having boyfriends. I mean, is this the similar sort of time to when nurses were not allowed to be married? That basically any working woman, I know this is not legit working, were not expected to be married. There's sort of a wider societal
Sam
expectation on women here.
Experiences, but maybe she was gay and secretly in love with the woman who married. Do we know anything about her love life? I didn't come across anything specifically to do with like her personal relationships.
I think it was probably more to do with, these are the rules and I have to make an example of someone who doesn't follow them, otherwise everyone's going to break my rules. And I think it's probably more
if you break a rule about keeping it in your pants, essentially if you'll break a rule where it's about you need to control yourself, then what other rules will you break? Will you peach on us? If I can't trust you to follow, we are making good money. And if she says on Wednesdays we wear polka dots and someone breaks that rule, now am I saying that it would be extreme to beat the living shit out of them? Yes, but this is not the Rotary Club.
So
this is a criminal organisation.
But I also can't believe that was the first time it had happened.
Yeah,
it might be the first time one got knocked up.
Well, no, she was like, well, yeah, but she'd already said, I want to be with this bloke, and she said no, but then she got pregnant.
The bottom line is there are, if people are going to give somebody up, they're either going to be made afraid. There's got to be some leverage. So it's either fear or aspiration. So having a husband and then a child, that is a weakness in a career criminal because it's a vulnerability. And she doesn't want these ladies vulnerable because they're already vulnerable because they're doing crime in a violent man's world. Having an extra vulnerability is just really fucking stupid.
I think you're right about the trust as well.
Yeah.
This is the situation that requires utmost trust. And if you're going to show yourself to be someone who isn't going to follow the rules are the rules. Them's the rules. If you're not going to follow them, like you say, what else? You're a problem.
And you know too much. Yeah. We can't let you leave We can't let you walk away. You know too much.
But that's why I said, I get it. I do get it. But I just think I'm surprised that eventuality didn't happen before. And I can't believe that was the first time.
I think the daft thing was she went herself.
Well,
that was the daft thing. Should have
she
sent someone lower down the order.
She did. She sent a lot of people, but that was the thing. See, that's where she did something stupid. She very openly declared it in this pissed up public setting that this is what all these people should do. So actually, that was a massive schoolboy error on her part.
Yeah,
but that was the asserting her dominance over the gang. There were the rules. I put them down. This person has.
But I don't know who else was there because it was in a public.
Yes, but she's pissed, isn't she?
Well, I don't know.
It was. It had to be. Oh right.
We need more details. There weren't any. But I don't know. I just think this was an inevitability.
So we're at the hour mark, and if your phone is dying, then we need to get on to Pat's bit.
Okay. So I'm sort of talking about a wider context. I'm going to whistle stop tour this, but overridingly, I think I'm fascinated by what we started talking about at the beginning, which is why is it that gangsters, organized criminals, etc., are frequently mythologized and, in some respects, hero worshipped in a way that other extraordinarily violent criminals are not? And we've had a long history of being fascinated by violence and by criminality. I'm going to start with 1611 and the first publication of a play by Thomas Middleton and Thomas Dekker called The Roaring Girl, which is based on a real person called Mary Frith. In the play, she's called Moll Cutpurse. So there's an implication that she is some kind of a pickpocket. In the real figure and the stage figure goes around dressed in male clothing, which is again transgressive. So we have this transgressive female in the very early 17th century, who is being hero worshipped in this play. And indeed, in the play, she is the hero of the piece. And interestingly, the real Mary Frith did play herself on stage, which is quite incredible, I think. I'm going to hop forward to 1725, and a really interesting text, well, I think it's interesting, is published. We don't know who the author is. The text is titled A New Canting Dictionary, comprehending all the terms, ancient and modern, used by the several tribes. This is now a slur, but I'm going to... It's the G word for traveller. Several types of G, beggars, shoplifters, and all other clans of cheats and villains, interspersed with proverbs, phrases, figures of speech, with a preface giving an account of the original progress, etc., of the canting crew, to which is added a complete collection of songs in the canting dialect. So what this is it's a published text of terms, allegedly slang terms, in a dialect called cant. This is not Cockney rhyming slang, although it's frequently connected to being Cockney rhyming slang. This is we are told, a dialect of the subculture, a dialect of criminality, and it's a coded language by which people are able to communicate who somebody is and what they could potentially be robbed for. The logic being, if you buy this book, you won't get fleeced. What this is saying to me is that even at this stage, street crime, particularly the fear of becoming a victim to it, was potent enough that a book of this type could find a market sufficient that someone's prepared to print it. And as I said, I think it's interesting that gangsters still seem to have a romance attached to them, that their stories are marketed to us as being cool. In the next century, Oliver Twist is serialised. It's serialised from 1837 to 1839, which of course features Fagin's gang of child pickpockets. And there is a few people who are seen as being the origin point for Fagin. He may, in part, have been based on a guy called Isaac or Ike Solomon. He was known as the Prince of Thieves, and allegedly some people say that he hired a group of children to steal goods for him, and he then fenced those stolen goods out of a jewellery shop he'd opened in London. He was sort of back and forth from Australia, and eventually he was transported to Australia in 1834. But he'd managed somehow to get himself into a nice little setup where he was reunited with the family he had created while out in Australia. The 40 elephants who we've been talking about emerge as the 19th century is becoming the 20th, and they sort of follow that period through. So running concurrently to these people, to the 40 elephants, and of course the Elephant and Castle gang, who are their contemporaries in London, at the same time in Birmingham, the Peaky Blinders are plying their criminal trade and their violent criminal trade. We talked about the 40 elephants collaborating with this all-male Elephant and Castle gang. Now, they are much less subtle than their female counterparts. And I think people who've seen Peaky Blinders will recognise a lack of subtlety. The Elephant and Castle gang have been described as, quote, smash and grab artists, burglars, fences and thugs. They were criminal specialists offering a range of services, from hired muscle and warehouse thieving to bookmaking, bankrolling, and pitch selling. George Cornish, who was a detective from the time, described the Elephant and Castle gang as smart, well-dressed, well-educated, dapper aristocrats of crime. The 40 elephants are still training shoplifters well into the 20th century. And indeed, the group get credit for the training of somebody by the name of Shirley Pitts. She is known as the queen of shoplifters, but she would also dabble in fraud. She did, however, unlike the others, draw the line completely at ever committing an act of violence. She was proud of the fact that she would never be violent. And in fact, she stopped talking to her brother when he committed a violent offence. As a sign of the time in which she's working and how far we've jumped on, Shirley is using what she calls magic bags. So these are carrier bags that she lines with tin foil to get around the system of security tags. So we're in a phase where there are security tags. Now, that system of the security tags that could be overridden by a tinfoil bag, that then swiftly is done away with, and now that wouldn't work. But Shirley is active from the 1950s, and so therefore her criminal career in London runs alongside the gang activity of the Watney Streeters, the Richardson gang, who are up on this incredibly famous torture trial. They're based in South London. One of their cohorts has the name Mad Frankie Fraser.
Love it.
When a member of the Richardson gang dies, they do a floral tribute that references the fact they were supposed to have tortured somebody using a car battery. The Richardsons' big rivals are in the East End. That's the Cray twins, who are also known for their extraordinary violence. Shirley was also a contemporary of the great train robbers as well. And when Shirley died and had her funeral in 1992, messages of condolence were sent to her by the Crays and also by one of the great train robbers. At the graveside, we're told that she was praised by mourners for never grassing on anybody or peaching. And there's a photograph in the newspaper of, and this we are talking about a multiple car cortege, the old-fashioned sort of London gangsters funeral. So they're all talking about how she never grassed, and there's a picture of the floral tribute with the letters, the letters that spell out like mum or auntie. Hers said, "Gone shopping."
And it's impressive that there's room for that many letters.
Yeah.
It was 6 foot. It was a 6-foot floral arrangement. And then after them, kind of the Crays and the Crays and the Richardsons are dabbling in drug smuggling and protection rackets. But today, the London gang scene is very much enmeshed in drug smuggling, human trafficking, etc. Interestingly, I was looking up and I was trying to find evidence of this case that I heard about on a documentary, and I don't know why, but it's been scrubbed from the internet.
Oh.
There was a police investigation called Operation Shampoo, we are told, targeting a West London gang of it was mixed community Asian members. They are called the Tootie Nung, and they started off as a really violent gang in relation to the racism that members of that community were suffering from, essentially the BMP. So there were two gangs that came out of that violence, which is the Tootie Nung, and there's the Holy Smokes as well. And my understanding is that the Holy Smokes are Sikh majority, whereas the Tootie Nung are, broadly speaking, a much more diverse Asian population. One of the members, or somebody connected to the Tootie Nung, is an incredibly wealthy bloke, and he set up this extraordinary drug smuggling operation whereby they smuggled heroin into the country, and they smuggled it in out of India. So they had bought people in the Indian airport to be able to smuggle this through. They found pathways, but they were coming into Heathrow, and that is no joke. So what they did was they essentially staffed the entirety of the cleaning crew with their people. And so when somebody got off the plane, they would have a key to the tampon dispenser of the ladies' toilets at Heathrow. So these women get off the plane, they go straight in, and they take a kilo of heroin, unlock the tampon dispenser, put it in, lock it up, and leave. Then the cleaning crew come in, unlock the tampon dispenser, take the heroin out, and they aren't being searched because they aren't going through customs.
Nice.
And this was happening daily. Kilos of heroin are coming in, until finally we're told this documentary says that this racket is busted. People are doing serious amounts of time for it. What's really interesting is if you try and Google Tootie Nung, spelt Tootinung, Heathrow, nothing. There's one documentary, and it's like there's no other reference to it, and I don't know where it's gone. And if you search Tootie Nung, the articles that come out about them or come up are articles that are published by Indian publications. So it's like the British press has been wiped, and I don't know why. So that's my story.
Yeah. So yeah, that's interesting because I think we do glamorize historical gang sort of, activity gets glamorized, Peaky Blinders,
Yep.
I don't know,
in
a craze. And then as we get closer, to today, you're like, it's very clear cut. No, this is not something that is very glamorous, and it's not something we would want to see in a film, or particularly. Well, I suppose there are films about stuff like that, but do you know what I mean? It's different.
Yeah.
It becomes clearer.
Like somebody walking in with a Tommy gun and shooting up at a New York bar. We're like, ooh, look at that. But we kind of, in a weird way, we'll go and eat a burger named after that person, won't we?
Mm-hmm.
But, and rightly so, when we talk about things like county lines or whatever, we're like, this is where the line is. But these gangs, the Richardsons, the Crays, the 40 Elephants, the Elephant and Castle gang, best believe they were involving children. Of course they were involving children. Of course they were manipulating children. Of course they were doing acts of violence and smuggling things that caused harm to people. Because crime is always this notion of the kind of the noble gangster who wouldn't touch drugs, wouldn't do it if there's profit in it. Of course they will. Of course they will. If the profit outweighs the risk, they aren't not trading in drugs because they feel bad about it. They're criminals.
So we've got quite a few comments. So Deborah says, the rest I've got written down here, it's crazy to me the ingenuity criminals have that they choose to use for crime. Think of all the good they could do with brains and ingenuity put into crime. I don't know if it's the same Deborah. I'm really sorry. It says it's easy to say, I would do that or I wouldn't do that. These ladies should have been doing this or they shouldn't have been doing that. It's easy to say what someone would have done in hindsight. We have no idea what life was like with these women because Intrepid Frady Cat put the women often had only two choices, was to steal or become a prostitute. Or Debbie said maybe even have to go to a workhouse. So you have to look at sort of all those options as to why.
Best believe I'd be pickpocketing if it was that or a workhouse.
Exactly.
I'd be knuckle deep in someone's pockets.
So you could also you've got the opportunity to be a high-end thief rather than are you going to, with that protection that you are offered by that gang or rackets?
Yeah, it's family, isn't it?
Yeah. Then Paige says, I feel like people are okay with it because it hurts the rich. I think that's a fair observation.
Robin Hood syndrome.
Robin Hood thing,
yeah. And Debbie said there are plenty, going back to what we were saying earlier, plenty of career criminals throughout history who have had families.
Yep. It's
and
always,
thought, that's
been a weak
fair.
spot.
Yeah, and then I also thought it occurred to me, if you pissed someone enough, of what have I missed?
I'm just Amy's just put Johnny has no one noticed. Look, right, we've both got small hands, love, and I could definitely, I'll be in that pocket like you wouldn't even notice.
Rat out of a drain pipe.
Like a rat up a drain pipe.
Even, I mean, what are the alternatives? Service and factories.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly.
Or
so if someone was gonna they should, you're not going to have the boyfriend and stuff because it's that weak link that we've talked about. But then could that person get pissed off and go and grass you up?
Yeah.
It's a tricky one. Moral of this story is
we'll
steal things and keep your knickers on, or don't steal things and take them off. Those are your options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Glad to be of service.
What a way to conclude.
That's how we roll.
Oh God! Right, Philippa, what's happening next week?
Well, next week we're on to the G, aren't we? We're having a George off.
We're
having a George off. The Georges.
Epic.
Yeah. So George 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the Georges, the ones that came in as a foursome. We're doing them. Anyway,
that was her. That was her. That was her.
That was me.
That was you. I would say if you have access to YouTube, you're on fucking YouTube. I would Google the 4 Georges from Horrible Histories because that song is
it's very good.
On point.
Yes.
It is.
So we're going to each present our George Git of choice.
Yeah.
Clackers, History Alice has the new George. She is her book is on scandal, and it's on the various images and what is the word I'm looking for? Satire is the word I'm looking for. It's on satirical takes on Georgian society more generally. It looks very interesting.
Although if we're going to plug anything, we should plug the Georgian Summit, to be fair.
And we will also do that.
Yeah,
I have it in the link on my bio, and so does Philippa. And we will give it more information about that. But come to the Georgian Summit because it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, Georgian Online History Festival, I should say.
Oh God, yeah.
But yeah, so we'll be covering Georgian history. In fact, Kat's done a talk on bare knuckle boxing.
Yes. Dorothy says Philippa is getting worse. Dr. Cat and Catherine's influence. Cat, I think that's quite rude. I don't think we should be standing for that.
It's not wrong. It's not wrong.
Right then, ladies, let's wrap up though, because we're nearly.
And Andy says not Gits. We'll talk about Gits. When we do our Gittish summary, I think.
Yes.
The 4 Gits in a couple of weeks.
4 Georges.
So,
yeah.
Yes.
Now that's a bunch of Gits, Irish Paddy. That's a
bunch
of Gits.
Indeed. That's why we couldn't decide which George. So we're going to put forward each our own candidate for which one we think is.
Philippa, what's in our link tree?
So if you go to our link tree on Instagram, and I'm hoping I set it up on YouTube, you can get links to our Substack, which is our hub. That's where we put I thought Philippa said Cat's doing bare knuckle boxing.
Have done.
Yeah.
Not this week. Later. See you in the bar.
So our Substack is our hub. That's where we're going to be putting links to everything we're doing. You can also find where to support us at buymeacoffee.com/had podcast. And please, can I take the opportunity to thank Toes in the Sand, V, Candy, Gourmet Bell, and Bobby Ann, who have all bought us coffees in the past week, and the wonderfully mysterious someone. When
Yes.
people don't put their name on, someone has bought you 3 coffees. 3 someones bought us coffees as well in the past week. So the Winnebago Fund is getting larger. So that's good.
Okay, last but not least, because I'm conscious of my phone, I'm so sorry. You can follow Philippa at British History Tours on YouTube, TikTok,
just British history everywhere other than
yeah.
Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah. Kat is Katrina.Marchant here and on TikTok, and Reading the Past, of course, on YouTube. I am the historical collaborator on here. Instagram. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Okay, so please come and look for us here. You can follow us all individually too. If you are following us on YouTube, thank you so much. Please go down to our Instagram where you'll get some extra content, including how to be one of our close friends. You can find the information on that on our link share. You go down to /had podcast, don't you? And that gives you the information on how you can become. Yeah, sorry. And breathe. I'm trying to get it all out quick and it's coming wrong. It's terrible when it goes wrong when you're trying to get it out quick. Yes, on our Substack. Sorry. I've just spotted now, so you can somebody help me.
I think it's time to go, is what I think. It's just too late.
So
you can become a close friend. On our close friend, we will post things that we normally put in our group chat to each other that are a little bit spicier than we'd normally put out on our regular Instagram. If you want to see the sort of depraved shit that we send to one another, then you can find out on our close friends. It's generally heinous, but it's a good time.
So yeah, that anyway. So if you follow us on YouTube, please come down and follow us on Instagram. You get extra content on there. If you're only following us on Insta, please come down and follow us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, bell button, etc., etc. We sort of got there in the end. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We've had a wonderful time. Questions and stuff to us if you want. We might answer them. You know how it rolls.
Probably won't.
And we probably won't. But we mean well. Okay, so take care, everybody. Kat, you counting us out?
Yeah. It's a 3. It's a 2. It's a 1.
Bye.
Bye.